Hello friends, once again and welcome to Thursday Satsang, which is based on Bhagavad Gita. And today I have taken a very interesting shloka where Arjuna is asking Krishna in the 6th chapter. This is the 37th shloka where Arjuna is saying, "O Krishna, what happens to one who is unsuccessful in yoga practice, who tries devotedly to meditate but finds himself unable to bring his mind under control? Does he not become like a riven cloud, scattered and dispersed, unable to find Brahman and equally unable to return to the delusory world he rejected?" Doesn't that sound familiar? Because often such kind of doubts, they come to a devotee also, because why? People sometimes they do feel, am I really succeeding on the spiritual path? Am I really going in correctly, or if I am failing on the path? Some kind of those kind of doubts are not uncommon. And then he says, "Please release me permanently, O Krishna, from these doubts. Who else but you can banish my uncertainty?" So then Krishna gives him the answer, and we know that how he dealt with that. But at the same time, when it comes to, friends, the doubts and the failure on the spiritual path, Swami Ananda later on writes in his explanation that there could be three kinds of failure on the spiritual path, or there are three ways in which sometimes devotees, when they come, they start doing well, and then they sometimes may not do enough. So the first category, he says, are those who come for some time and they practice the path and they do well, but suddenly it starts kind of happening to them that they feel as if they are missing the world. Because just like spiritual path, Yogananda said at some places that the results may not come immediately, because you need to keep a lot of patience. And when that patience is not there, it is like putting the seed and watering the seed and giving the manure and waiting patiently. You can't do anything beyond that. When you are putting the seeds in the soil, the shoot will come on its own. But sometimes, as it may happen that people, they walk for some time, and when they find that results are not coming, they actually start missing their worldly pleasure, and after walking for some time, they then go back to their worldly life and they just leave the path. And this, he said, unfortunately, it may happen that they lose this journey for one lifetime, but after few lifetimes, or maybe after more lifetimes, because once that desire has got planted in the heart, just like any other desire which has to get fulfilled, the desire for God, once it has been ignited in our hearts, will also eventually be fulfilled. It may take a few lifetimes, but yes, that kind of failure, if it has happened to somebody in one lifetime, he may have to continue for few more lifetimes till he reaches that point where this fire in the heart again brings him to the point to continue his search again. Now the second category of the failure, Swami writes, is the one which is like, the person is doing very well and he goes right up to the final exam of his life. And the final exam, we know what is that? It is actually leaving the body, physical body, and going into the other realm. And when we are going through that final exam, Swami says that that's a very auspicious moment. It's a very sacred moment. And in that moment, sometimes the doubts can assail a devotee, because he may start feeling, have I really done well? Or is it really that, that I'll be finding God when I will be leaving my body? Or is it that all these years I have done this struggle and ultimately I have done a lot of tapasya, he may feel in his mind, and he has missed the world, and then does he really want God? And such kind of doubts, he said, are not very uncommon even at the time of death, But then he says that, but they are not good for a devotee, because a devotee has to at that time feel, he has to, once he has devoted himself completely to the Lord and completely he has dedicated himself. So he said, you have to leave everything in God's hands. Don't be a judge at that moment. Never judge even your own actions or your own life, because your whole life picture kind of goes through in your mind at that time. And you may be doing introspection for all the events that have happened in your life. But he said, give it to God. Let God decide what will happen to you. And he says that people, those who leave everything to God, then certainly it's a kind of success they achieve, because God is a doer. But at the same time, if they do not succeed in giving everything into God's hands, then that kind of failure can be considered as one sort of failure. And then again, they may have to come back, and those doubts or those tendencies will remain in them, and they will have to fight it over in their next life. And the third kind of failure, Swami says, is that when people have done very good and ultimately they just fall short for the success. So it is like, you have almost reached, but you have fallen short. And in that case, sometimes he said, two things may happen. That sometimes if you have extinguished all your bodily karma, all your physical karma, then you can continue a journey from the astral plane. Whereas sometimes when you want to quickly expedite the process, then they say that even such souls, when they leave the body, they come immediately and take a birth, so that they can restart their journey and they can continue on their spiritual progress. So let me, we will go into this, into a little detail. But before we do that, let me just share with you what Krishna said in response to the question that Arjuna was asking him. So what does happen to a yogi who feels he's not able to do enough, or he's kind of failing? And then the blessed Lord said, "O Arjuna, my son." So you see, God always sees us as their own children, because he has created us. So we should always feel that God never judges anybody. He always treats us like his own children. Just like as a parent, you never judge your children. Yes, they will be making mistakes and they are part of life, but you know that yes, a time will come when they will learn from their mistakes and move on. So he addresses Arjuna with the same love. He says, "My son, one who performs right actions can never be destroyed. Whether in this world or the next, his fate will never be evil. A fallen but sincere yogi gains entry after death into the world of the virtuous. He may remain there for many years. Afterward, he is reborn on earth into a good and prosperous home, so that he can start his ongoing journey." And this is exactly what could be happening to many of us, because if, let us say, in our previous lives we have fallen short of finding God, and we have to start our journey in this lifetime from that point where we left it, that is what has happened to almost each one of us, because God in his compassion, God in his universal love for his each soul has given births to all of us in good families, in prosperous families, in virtuous homes, and slowly he has awakened in our hearts the same desire for God, so that we can restart our journey from the point which we have left in our previous lifetime. But also, friends, there is another component which we have to, because sometimes we feel, oh, God is such a high goal, when will I find him, or when will he come to me, when will I become one with him, when will my journey end? So you see, there are many ways in which Yog Swami said that if we keep God as a kind of abstract goal, it may sound very distant. But on the other hand, if you see, Yogananda gave 8 manifestations of God. He said God will come to us maybe in one of those forms, or maybe in multiple combinations of those forms. And we know, many of us, all what those 8 forms are, like light, sound, peace, calmness, power, wisdom, love and joy. So those are the 8 manifestations. So in our daily life, if we bring God into our practical daily life, one good way of understanding whether I am coming close to God or not, whether God is really the center of my existence or not, one can understand this fact if we are growing in our concentration, if we are growing in our creativity, if we are growing in our peace and calmness, if joy, an unconditional joy, is increasing in our lives, if your tendency to help others is increasing, you are becoming more compassionate, you are reaching out to people to help them, you are seeing the unity in diversity. Just like you see that God is the consciousness, just like Yogananda defined that God is that consciousness from which everything has come out. He is the substratum, you may say, that ocean from which all these waves, whether they are of animate objects, inanimate, trees, plants, birds, animals, humans, rocks, minerals, everything is just nothing but waves on the surface of the ocean. And everything looks in the appearance distinct, different from one another, but in essence it is nothing but a different vibration of the same consciousness. So once you start understanding that there is nothing which is separating you from that underlying current of the ocean of consciousness, and when you start feeling the oneness with the whole cosmos, when you start seeing the unity, then all these aspects, you can stay assured that you are coming closer to God. You are understanding that your existence also is nothing but a wave on that ocean. And this is something which, friends, gives that clarity to our minds. Then you don't have to keep God on a distant goal. In your daily life also, you know. And one of the beautiful ways Swami suggested that it would be good if you talk to God, if you see Him as your friend, you understand, and you will be able to reach that goal much quicker. But also sometimes, this can be there can be a doubt, or people may just start feeling, okay, that yes, I have a distinct goal in my life. Let's say you feel introspectively that you need to be more kinder, but somehow you are not finding yourself there yet. Then it is more importantly, what we have to understand is that it is a directional development, and since we are moving and walking in a direction towards that goal, then sooner or later that goal will be reached. So what should be done in the present moment is, as Swami suggested, that rather than fixing your mind on a definite goal, it would be good to feel that flow of energy which is constantly flowing within us. That is the constant reality, and the more we live in the flow of that energy, you can stay assured that you are living in the presence of God. Just like we prayed today, that help us to live in your consciousness, help us to live in your presence, help us to tune in, help us to feel, and help us to share that presence. So how do we do that? By daily introspecting that, yes, is that flow of energy, am I becoming more and more aware of that energy that is flowing through me, that is sustaining my body, that is making all those actions happen, that is animating my body. And the more we focus on that flow of energy, the more you will see you don't have to fix any definite goal in your mind. The rest, everything will just keep on following. So this is a very important aspect of living. How do we need to live every day as a day-to-day living, from moment to moment living? Just like Yogananda was saying, minutes are more important than the years. So from moment to moment basis, we have to understand, and this is something, there were days, friends, when sometimes I used to feel in the past that when we get up in the morning and there is all this challenge of the battle of life, as we understand that everything is going up and down, and sometimes you feel that oh, will I be able to do better this in this day and or not, because it is like a tough battle of life. But what I have felt is that if you see that in my one of the talks, I was sharing that 1% improvement, if you just keep the goal that okay, let me keep the target of just improving by 1%, or even if not 1%, maybe 0.5%, but that kind of goal if we keep, that yes, if my energy is increasing with each passing day, or if my willpower is increasing, if I am becoming more aware of that flow of energy, then you can stay assured that sooner or later you will be able to find your goal. Another thing which happened some time back to me in one of my classes, and I was talking to a friend, talking to one of the participants in the class, and he just said one thing which surprised me. He said, "Sir, I am a convenient believer." And I said, "What is that, convenient believer?" He said, "Yes, when things are going right in my life, then I do feel I am close to God and God is helping me. But when the things are not going good, then somehow I stay back and I don't feel that kind of connection," which is understandable, because that is why the doubts come. That is why all these challenges and these things, they come to our mind. Am I really doing good? Especially when the challenges of life, they take head on in our lives, and that time it is important if we feel that yes, if we just focus that okay, let the energy, if the energy is increasing and if the faith is there, if we feel that yes, these things are part and parcel, and once we keep offering our love to God and feel, that is why the surrender aspect is so important, that when we know, just like in one of the shlokas here, he is addressing Arjuna as son, and just think from that aspect, that if we are all children to God and God is our loving parent, now who as a parent would like to see his child suffer? No parent would like to see the child suffering unnecessarily, or nobody would like, rather you will do your best to alleviate his suffering, or whatever challenge your children are going through, you would like to help them, because that is what you feel your duty is as a parent. And similarly, when we see God as our parent, we say that every day in our mantra, when we say Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva. So that's the kind of mantra we always recite, that you are my mother and you are my father. So what kind of parent you'd see would allow a child to suffer unnecessarily? So if that kind of thought comes at that moment, when we are going through that adverse period, you can stay very well assured that God loves you and He's already helping you even in those moments of adversity. Yes, you are finding it difficult to walk on, but He is not neglecting you. He is right there. He's flowing through you. The very energy with which you are thinking those thoughts or feeling those things, or you are understanding what this life is, that all that understanding is coming to you because of that consciousness, which is that awareness. So God is the nearest of the nearer, as Yogananda said, and dearest of the dearer, because He is the closest reality at that moment. So with these thoughts, friends, when we understand that yes, failures, as Yogananda at another point also highlighted, that the goal, and I was reading this book, Material Success Through Yoga Principles, for some of the classes, and there Swami writes that everything is karmic, even the success which we will be able to identify. So even in the book Material Success Through Yoga Principles, friends, as I was reading this book, and Swami made this point that everything is karmic, and there is a lot of even the success, he said, the outward success which will come to us will inevitably end in an outward failure, because everything is based on duality. Now this may sound really scary, because when we achieve success, we feel good, but at the same time you want to achieve more success and you want the success to continue. Now that is not how things happen in the realm of the universe, because since everything is based on duality, everything is a wave on the surface of ocean, which goes up has to come down. So Swami has written very clearly in the book that every outward success will inevitably end in failure. But having said that, Swami writes that even that failure, outward failure, can become an inner victory for you, because it all depends on how you identify that event. Because now this is very important, because Yogananda also mentioned that conditions are always neutral. So if we have expectations of things happening in particular way and they don't happen, even that failure can be an inner victory for you, provided you have learned to keep yourself even-minded and that is your victory. Because if you are even-minded, no outer event is affecting your inner consciousness, then you have been victorious. Then that's a kind of success we all want to gain in the life, because ultimately we want to become, or we want to enjoy the success of our own inner reality, which is always bliss and which has no polar opposite. We just have to understand that we have come from God. God is bliss. Bliss has no opposite. Come what may, whether you define it something as an outward success or worldly success, whether you define it as an outward failure, it just does not matter if you can remain in your peaceful, calm state of mind, even-minded state of mind, unruffled by outward conditions. Then you are a success, no matter what is happening in your outer life. And this is what we are trying to achieve, and that is what is going to give us ultimate fulfillment. No amount of outward success in the eyes of the people can define the joy and the bliss of your being, which you are always, because you are a part of God. And the moment we understand this, the moment we start living in that reality, the moment we feel that no matter, and that is exactly what was happening to all these saints. Some of these saints, even Swami Kriyananda's life, if we see, his health was going up and down in so many times, as even doctors, medical doctors, when they used to see his file, they used to feel how this man is surviving, how his body is surviving, because there were so many things in his body, so many organ dysfunctions at the same time. It was really challenging for this gentleman to continue on and on. And not only physical challenges, but he had to face the challenge of betrayal of his own guru's organization. At the same time, there were other challenges. There were financial challenges coming up in his life. There was a challenge where he was trying to establish the community and the houses got burned down. I mean, many of us already know what kind of life was Swami Kriyananda's life as he was leading it. But ultimately, now you may try to see from the outside angle what many things were happening good, many things were not happening good, but ultimate victory for him was that he learned the ability, because of the blessings of the Guru, to tune into that reality which was always calm, peaceful and blissful. And many of us, those who came in his contact, we could feel that bliss pouring out from him, because he was always in that state. So I would like to conclude here, friends, that the real success, as sometimes people like this Arjuna was representing the devotee's mind there, that yes, what will happen to me, Krishna, please guide me. if I fail in the process, if I'm not able to concentrate enough, if I'm not able to, and this is exactly Swami in fact said that that a failing yogi or a failed yogi is much higher than a successful materialist. At one point he mentioned that, because a successful materialist will have to learn that lesson in even mindedness in times to come. But that yogi who is doing his best, who is putting his energy in the right direction, and maybe he is just falling short, but he's much ahead than that person who has not yet even started walking on that path. So yes, we have to stay patient, we have to have faith, and we have to feel, as I said, even when you feel that you are at a distance from God, but if you are growing in your energy, if you feel that your awareness of that energy is increasing, if your willpower is increasing, if your concentration is increasing, if you are feeling love for God day by day, that is increasing, if you feel oneness with your Guru Bhais, if you feel oneness with everybody around you, oneness with your neighborhood, you want to help them, and that natural love in your heart is blossoming, then you can stay assured that you are walking closer to God and you don't have to worry about anything.